Is it too early for me to say that that this is my favorite Halo multiplayer ever? Dude, I actually have to ask myself that too. Like, I don't know. I really don't know because it has the makings of something truly great, and you can feel that. As soon as you touch this game, you can feel the love and passion and care that went into making this game. Like, it's tangible almost. Is it the best Halo multiplayer? It might be. Like, it might very well be. It's the mixture that everybody wants, I feel like. The new fans, the old fans, like, everybody is meeting in the middle here and saying, like, this is something that's truly great. And whether or not it's the best Infinite, or whether Infinite is the best multiplayer, it's going to be probably the most popular, like, without saying, right? It's the new game. But I definitely think that this game has a really solid shot at being the best Halo multiplayer in a lot of people's eyes. I really honestly believe that. I'm not going to say anything too soon because, like, the game isn't out yet, of course. The things can change. But if this is a taste test to what we can really truly expect, then I'm down. I think this is great. Hey, how's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Vanilla Soup, and today we're going to be talking about my experience within the Halo Infinite flight that took place this last weekend. The technical preview, in my eyes, was a smashing success. I think a lot of players got their hands on this game and overall had amazingly positive opinions towards the game. Now, I'm going to take this video as an opportunity to express the things I really like and maybe discuss some things that I don't really care for, or maybe things that need a little bit of improvement, that I see at least. Now, I don't think I'm going to take a lot of time in this video to talk about bugs or anything like that, because those are files that we should open up with the report system that 343 has in place, the surveys they're sending out. Those kind of things are the appropriate place to talk about this, because this video is just about what I like and maybe what I don't like as far as the game and its functionality. We could talk about bugs all day long because that flight was full of them, and rightfully so. It's a pre-alpha game build, pretty much. They've stressed that a lot. It's not even in beta, really. So this multiplayer experience was definitely not what we're going to experience fully at launch. It's going to have a lot of bugs that we're hopefully going to have ironed out by the time that launches. So again, not going to talk about a lot of bugs here. We're just going to be talking about overall things that I like, maybe some weapons balancing that I want to talk about, some armor customizations, the equipment, all these things we're going to talk about in this video. But I'm going to keep it light on the editing just so we can talk about this in a very organic fashion and not super scripted or anything like that, like my normal videos might be, just so I can give an authentic representation of how I feel maybe in this moment, because I just stopped my play session maybe like 2 hours ago. I know the flight is going on for another 8 or 10 hours, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning where I am at, and it's time for me to go to bed. So I'm really eager to just talk about this so I can edit it and get it up for you guys tomorrow. All right, so with all that out of the way, let's jump into it. I want to first off say that I am incredibly happy about how this game is going. As you can tell by the intro of this video, I think this might have the potential to be what we are wondering about this game. Is it going to be the best Halo multiplayer experience to date? I think it has a solid chance. Now, I'm not saying for sure that it is or isn't, because, I mean, the game's not even really out yet. This is just a small taste. But I can tell you I enjoyed the crap out of it. And every time I wanted to pick up something to entertain myself this weekend, I chose Halo instead. I enjoyed so much of my time in this game. I know there were bugs. I know there were performance issues. I know there was problems with people getting in the server and in the game. But all that aside, I had the time of my life this weekend. I can't express the last time I had this much fun in a Halo game. And I can say that with firm understanding that I had a lot of fun in almost every Halo game. Now, I grew up with the original Bungie Halo games, so it's really hard to gauge how I was when those games first released. But for games I've been an adult for, or at least a little bit older for, like Halo 5, and I was in high school when Halo 4 came out, I had a lot of fun with this game. I had a lot of fun. So I just want to get that out of the way, that overall my feelings might be a little skewed towards that just because of how much fun I was actually having. But I want to talk about overall things, right? Some other things that maybe I didn't like. So first of all, I want to talk about just the ping system. I think the ping system needs a little bit of refinement. I think it's a really cool implementation. I think it's a feature that a lot of us want and need in Halo going forward. I think it's kind of a necessary thing to have at this point, considering Halo's competition and the multiplayer genre is they all have ping systems. So Halo needs one too. And I'm not saying that's across the board a blanket statement for every single feature, but I think for something like this, it really needs to be present. It's not as reliable as I would hope it would be. When I try and tap an enemy with my ping, it sometimes will get what's behind them, or if I'm not pinpoint precision with it, it'll get an item next to it when the enemy is walking by, maybe some grenades or something like that. It'll ping the grenades. I think that just needs a little bit more time and tender love and care. I think that's something that is really doable. That's just a minor thing. What I don't like about it, though, is that it doesn't really have an option to double tap just to mark an enemy. And that kind of correlates with what I was saying earlier about how it's kind of hard to get exactly what you want to be pinged. For example, in Apex Legends, if you want to ping something, you just tap the button once. If you want to tap that and there's an enemy there, you can just tap it twice. I think that feature was supposed to be there. I think something like that is supposed to be there, but for the life of me, I could not get it to work. Maybe it's user error, but that's something I just noticed that I could not get to work for my game specifically. And maybe, who knows, it was a bug. Maybe it was just a bug on my end, because I had some other things that were like personal bugs to me that apparently not a lot of other people had issues with. Like, I was locked behind levels in the battle pass. There was 20 levels for you to work your way towards in the build, but I only got to like level 7 by the end of the time, by the end of the weekend, because I kept on getting stuck on a battle pass progression goal, or at least a mission or a checkpoint or whatever. It wouldn't let me progress towards the next one. So that was a big bummer for me, because I couldn't get like the higher tier stuff that came in the battle pass. It doesn't really matter in the long run for that one specifically, because, well, that stuff isn't carrying over. But I don't want to be on that tangent too long. But there's just some things that were just for me, so I wanted to make that clear. The active camo also is something that I think really needs just one small feature. It works great. I will say that the power-ups like active camo and overshield, they don't feel as impactful against bots, but oh my goodness, do they feel impactful towards the player versus player. I'm really glad that they brought PvP in at the very end of this flight, just so we can at least experience it, because a lot of my thoughts about the flight beforehand were actually kind of changed once we got our hands on with other players, and I'll get into more of that in a little bit here. But the active camo, it needs a counter. We can't rely on just a visual cue maybe on the border. We need a dial or something like Halo has always had. Let's be real. I think that's something that just needs to be in the final game. We need something we can look at and identify with, like, okay, our camo is almost up. It's going to help with plays. It's going to help with how we strategically place ourselves on the map. It's just something that I think really needs to happen. The overshield has it, so via the health bar. So why not on the active camo? Speaking of shields, though, the shields are really hard to see when you're using an overshield. And by that I mean when a player shows up on the feed with active camo, or sorry, not on the feed, but in the game with active camo, their character just looks really bright, like their entire body's glowing. And you could technically know, like, yes, that is a player that has overshield and they're actively using it. But it's really hard to tell the difference between that and when their shields are stripped, actually. They're very similar, and in the heat of battle, they're very easily mixed up. I did hear on Twitter that Quinn Del Hoyo already actually addressed this. He said that the team is already working on this, so that's really great to hear, especially since considering we've had 3 days in this flight, and they're already noticing so much they could do to improve this game, and they're already responding to community feedback that fast. Even within the flight, they were updating and patching the build. That is not going to have any consequence on the full game. Can we just appreciate that? That in the build that's 2 months old, that they like stripped and cut the game to ship to us for a flight. They're working on that build to just help us have a good experience through the weekend. That's amazing. Granted, that keeps us happy for sure as fans, and that keeps us playing, and that helps us give more feedback in the long run. So there is a payoff there for sure. But that's dedication. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so shields. We talked about active camo. That's equipment. Now let's talk about a little bit about weapons. What I think about weapons. The Heatwave and Pulse Carbine. Actually, before we get there, I just want to say, like, a lot of the weapons feel amazing. The weapons feel so great in this game. I saw one video that criticized the weapons, and I just don't. I don't agree with them at all. Like most of the weapons feel exactly like they should. Someone said the Needler needs to be nerfed, but we want the Needler to be that strong again. Like the last couple of games we've had, the Needler hasn't been as impactful as it should. Or maybe when it was part of the Warzone Rec system with like a higher tier Needler. So with just the base Needler in this game, I think it has a great spot. I think it fits in great with the sandbox. I think it's doing a great. I think it's in a great position. That's all I pretty much want to say about the Needler. But everything else feels really good. The Commando, I know a lot of people were kind of nervous about going into the build because maybe the Commando was just going to be a little bit too easy to shred people up with. It seemed like really powerful, but once you get your hands on it, man, it's kind of difficult to use and to control that recoil if you're not really paying attention to what you're doing or if you're just kind of moseying around the map. So the Commando fits in really well. The BR, it's the BR. It's amazing. It works great. One of my favorite weapons actually is the Ravager. I freaking love that weapon. Its alt fire is amazing. You shoot it and it bursts an area of effect of flames and it starts burning your opponents. It's going to be so strong on objective based maps like Strongholds or maybe even like Capture the Flag. Like if you have an enemy coming up towards the flag base to return, you can shoot the alt fire and then they're burning and then easier kill that way. But yeah, like Strongholds, King of the Hill, those objective based things, Ravager is going to be super impactful, and that's why I almost think the Ravager should be in the power weapon slot, and maybe not like the Skewer and the Sniper was in the build with that power weapon, but maybe in the slot of like just below that, if there is such a thing. I think there might be, because the Heat Wave and the Bulldog are definitely impactful weapons, and they seem to be on a larger cooldown than any of the other weapons you could pick up. But maybe on those objective-based maps, it could benefit from being a little bit smaller or longer of a cooldown before another one respawns. We haven't played any objectives on this game yet. We've only played Slayers, so it's really hard to tell. But that's just me forward thinking there. That's me just thinking about the repercussions that gun is going to have, because I freaking love it. It's sick as all get out. I want to see more of it. I want to use it more. I want to play this game over again already. I'm just going to... I'm okay. I'm done talking about the Ravager. I'm going to geek out all day if I could. So like I said, all the weapons feel really good. Except two in my mind, and less so when we got into PvP, but the thoughts still remain. The Heatwave and the Pulse Carbine, I feel like need a lot of work, and I want to be really specific when I criticize these guns, because I think that there's room for these guns to be really impactful, or at least more useful to the player in the long run. Let's start with the Pulse Carbine. I think the Pulse Carbine is a great idea. It feels like sort of a reworked Storm Rifle or a reworked Plasma Rifle. But it strips shields really fast. It has a 3-round burst like maybe like a battle rifle does, but it strips shields with plasma rounds like a plasma pistol would. The problem is that its tracking is really unreliable, and its speed of which isn't that great. Now I understand there's a really fine line you have to walk when you're designing a gun that shoots rapidly and strips shields, but I don't feel like it feels that great to use even regardless as it stands. It's not something I actively go out of my way to pick up. Now, I had a player that I played against in PvP when that came out shred me with it. So there is opportunity for it. And maybe that's one of those things that just requires a lot of skill. Like the Skewer, that's a high skill cap weapon, and I finally started to feel like I was getting the hang of it just here on the last day. The first day, I wouldn't touch it. I was like, man, I'm going to wait till I go to the shooting range with that, and I'm gonna try it out there. But then I kept giving it more chances, and I got better with it. The Pulse Carbine does have a spot, and I think the more we play with it, the more we'll get comfortable with it. It's also just kind of unreliable at the range it's supposed to be effective at. So it's supposed to be like a mid-range to short-range kind of weapon to strip shields. But like I said, its tracking isn't really great. Not the projectile, but the plasma rounds that come out of it don't travel fast enough to hit the target before like maybe they like can quickly strafe to the side. It's not that reliable in that sense. But like I said, once PvP was introduced, it got a lot better. Heatwave. Let's talk about the Heatwave. I was really actually negative about the Heatwave. If you're watching the streams and if we were talking about it there, I didn't like the Heatwave. I thought it, like, functionally, it's really cool design. Sorry, not functionally, but in design philosophy, it's really interesting. It's really cool. I like its animations. I like its design. But as far as its functionality within the sandbox, I just was really harsh on it when I was in PvE, when I was fighting the bots. There was like really no point to me to use the horizontal fire, and I always wanted to use the vertical fire. And this part I still think stands true even regardless of PvE versus PvP. If I'm lining up the vertical shot, I do believe it should be like a shotgun round almost. Every shot in that does enough damage to kill that opponent. I think it should do it, but no, that's not how it works. It takes like 2 or 3 shots to do it. Now the horizontal shot I did think was pretty pointless, but once we played players, the way they function, we like to strafe, right? We're shooting at our opponent and we like to strafe. The horizontal shot is amazing for that because they'll get hit by one and move into the other at the same time. And so it's really convenient for like not a rapid fire, but a very consistent pop, pop, and you can really do some damage with it. So the horizontal fire I think is great now. Now that after I've played it with PvP, I think it functions really well. But man, that vertical fire I think really does need to get some love. I think the alt fire should increase its damage just enough to fully destroy a Spartan at short to mid range. I think that's totally justifiable considering it is in the same slot as a Bulldog where it's going to do a lot of damage at mid range. So I think it's perfectly justified to increase the damage on the Heat Wave. One last thing about weapons that I want to talk about is the plasma pistol. I like the way the plasma pistol sounds. It sounds like the Halo games of old where we got really used to that sound. It looks great too. I don't like... Okay, maybe this isn't something I don't like, but this is something I find very interesting. Noob combo is not here. Because before, noob combo was when you strip someone's shields with the plasma pistol, and then all of a sudden you whip out your magnum, and you pop them in the head because their shields are stripped, and then they're done. It takes 2 shots to kill a Spartan with strip shields now. 2 headshots, that is. The sidekick is not powerful enough to do the job that noob combo would do. Now, I can already hear your comments like, oh my gosh, well, you shouldn't be upset that noob combo is gone. I am, because noob combo is a staple of Halo. Like, it's not exactly a noob combo anymore. Like, in Halo 5, it kind of went back to it, but I still feel like it takes some skill to line up a shot with the plasma pistol, especially now that it's a slower projectile speed, or a slower movement speed of its plasma. I think it would take more skill to get the shot on, hit it, and then pull out a gun to one-shot them. I was doing it a little bit on the streams with the battle rifle, and that was fine because that does enough damage. But the draw speed of a handgun is just so much more reliable for that mechanic. And it's going to be really sad to see that whole noob combo idea gone. And I don't know if that's something that they're going to already address in the final game, because there is rumors that they are actually going to put up the Magnum in there. We don't know. Maybe it's going to be a power weapon. Like I said, who knows? But I do think that we need something that can bring out the noob combo again. Something that you could shoot him with the plasma pistol and then whip out really fast for a good kill. Now, the sidekick does kind of do it because his shots are really rapid, but it's still like it takes 2 shots. It's more satisfying to do the 1 and 2. That's all I have to say about the plasma pistol, really, because everything else is really great. Okay, we've talked about weapons. Let's move on to like how the bots perform and maybe other things about the game. I think the bots are great for learning the game. They're serving the exact purpose that they told us they would. They were great to like kind of understand the game's mechanics. I will say that once we got into PvP, me and my brother both noticed like, oh my gosh, the bots were teaching us to play this game a little bit wrong. And by that, we could always rely on them to go to one route. And so immediately on our first game of PvP, we went the route we would normally go to fight against bots, because they, like on live fire, they would always come out of that pocket towards the front of where the sniper or the skewer spawns. Well, players don't do that. They want to go for the power weapons. So we kind of had to rewire our brains real quick. So to answer that, I think the Spartan bots that are more difficult, that should be emulating players better than any other bot, I think they should be programmed to go for different objectives, to go for different power-ups, to go for different equipment slots. I think those are things that the Spartan bots should do that maybe the ODST or the Marine bots don't. I think Spartan bots should emulate characters or real players as much as possible. So that's just a small portion of feedback on the bots. But I think they should also have randomly generated armor. I think that would just add to the immersion of the game. Maybe 343 doesn't want that. Maybe they don't want to have any misconception, I should say, about whether a player is playing bots or real people. That's just a nitpick. I understand that, but I think they should have randomly generated armor. Let's talk about some more things that I actually really like, because I feel like I went on a list of good and bad really rapidly. So let's just talk about things that I really enjoy. The Spartan stances all around are something that was a very big highlight. Before the game when you saw your Spartans start, but also in the loading screen, that was really cool too. I liked how they loaded up in the screen while your fire team's getting ready. There was even a portion of the stream where I noticed that, like, oh, hey, you can have 28 people in your fire team. And I don't know if that's alluding to something, but that's a point for another video. But there's going to be so much things that the Spartans could do in the waiting screen while you're, you know, communicating on like what kind of game you want to play. So imagine that loading screen with 28 Spartans. It's going to be fun to see like maybe a pair in the background of your Spartans and your fire team doing an arm wrestle. Maybe some Spartans are loading up weapons in the Pelican. Maybe some are like playing the knife game with your fingers. And I think that would just be a lot of fun. That's just something I really like. But the waiting screen, I already talked about the loading screen, but also the ending screen where you get to see your Spartans. And all these things are going to be super customizable, and I hope they really do take advantage of that, whether it's through Battle Pass unlocks or maybe things in the store or maybe things you can unlock through gameplay. Just different stances. I like the stances options that we got in Halo 5 where you have your Spartans standing like this or anything like that. But just different stances for your character to be doing during pre-game and after game. I think that would be really fun. Some other things I really liked. I really just liked how simple this experience was. I didn't really want this to be like a full taste test of the game. I want that to come later when it's maybe like an open beta, like an official beta. But this was like a perfect sample as to what we could expect down the road. And I really appreciate that. Also, the sound design, I want to talk about that. I talked about it briefly with weapons and stuff, but the sound design overall is fantastic in this game. The ambient noises aren't intrusive like they would be in some older Halo games. Think about Halo 4 a lot, especially like on, what is the map called? Library, where the noises just like really get in the way. I may be thinking the wrong map, but you get the idea. There's some maps where the ambient noises in the background just get really annoying, to be honest. This game's ambient noises was very subtle, and they talked about that in dev interviews before too, that they wanted any sound or music to be impactful and to have reason of being there. The only noises that I heard in the game were things that were functionally happening on the map, whether that was a level changing, like a little piece of material you could stand on, changing its elevation, or maybe a pelican in the background. That adds just to its immersion, right? Like you just know you're on a military base by seeing a pelican fly by and you hear it. But all that aside, the sound design in general is really nice. Visually also, the game looks amazing. Even in pre-alpha or in the flight that we're in, it looks amazing, right? It looks like Halo should look. And I'm grinning ear to ear just thinking about playing this game again, because I kind of already want to just wrap up this video and lie to myself and go back and play. But we got to stay on task. But yeah, guys, those are some rapid fire things I have for after this flight. Thanks for watching this whole thing. If you watched it all the way through, if this video makes the way to anybody at 343, just know, holy crap, I'm so happy about this game. You guys knocked it out of the park. I'm getting chills just talking about this, because this day, like, oh man, I can't wait till this game launches. You guys knocked it out of the park for what we've seen so far. Like I said, there's a couple things where I would hope things could change or maybe get improved on. But overall, the package, like if the game shipped tomorrow and was like this, minus all the bugs, I'd be a happy man. I'd be really happy, because overall it works really well. Nitpicks aside, really, and that's what it all comes down to. Like, there's not a lot in this video where I was like, this needs to change because this is terrible or this is bad design. We didn't even talk about sprint, and that was like a huge thing, right? All the sprinting argument, and I love it because like the sprint argument is almost gone, right? Like, people have come to terms that this is a great way to implement sprint. You get sprint for those who want it, and it's not that crazy. And we can make a whole video about it, but to be concise about it, it really is more of a utility rather than a functionality, if that makes sense. Like, I use sprint to do other things like slide faster or gain momentum. I don't sprint to be inherently faster in this game, and I really like that. All right, guys, that's it for me, though. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did like it, remember to leave a like button. Leave a like on the video. It does help out the channel a lot. And if you're new, subscribe, because we do stuff all the time regarding Halo, and maybe if you like this kind of video, we could do it more, where I just kind of give my random thoughts. But I definitely wanted to give my thoughts out in a video sooner rather than later. So I hope you guys all enjoy, and until next time, I'll see you online. Vanilla Soup out.